Hi there folks, in today's demonstration I went live and I built out a Ticketmaster agent that allows you to search for events across the globe. So Ticketmaster has a developer API, and using that I built a custom connector and then I searched for Oasis tickets in July in London. So in order to demonstrate this, I have the finished agent that you'll see in the rest of the video, and at the bottom right hand side here, if I ask a question about the upcoming Oasis tickets in London in July, you'll see that custom connector being called using generative orchestration, and then off the back of that request, we'll get our response, and we can see as I scroll up through the response here that on July the 25th, we have Oasis available at Wembley Stadium in London. So if you want to see how that was built, step by step, unedited, make sure you watch on, and if you haven't already, like and subscribe, and I'll let you get on to the video. So in order to get started, I'm going to need to share my screen, so hopefully now we can see my screen. I have the documentation for the event search that we can see here. If I click on that, that takes us to an API endpoint. We've also got a sample for the API, which returns back some JSON. And in fact, if I just copy that sample URL and we'll open up a new tab and paste that in, you'll note I need to supply an API key. I have one of those in my clipboard because I've signed up for a developer environment, but that brings back lots of lovely data about one event because I've currently got a size of 1 here at the top, but the Sacramento Kings versus the Phoenix Suns. And I want to bring that into a custom connector. Hi there, Tony. See, you've just joined me. So I'm going to bring that into a new custom connector. I'm going to create that from blank, and I'm going to call this the Ticketmaster connector. And today is the 17th of March. So we'll go with 17th of March 2025, just so I can, just so I can identify this new connector that I've created. I have got myself a lovely logo for the Ticketmaster API. And we just need to go through now and just configure the endpoint. So the easiest way to do that is if I jump back here, I need to get the root API, which is app.ticketmaster.com, and stick that in there and move on to security. So when it comes to security of our API, if we have a look at the documentation, we saw already that we need to pass in a parameter for the API key, like so. And so I'm just going to go into authentication here, and we can have API key authentication, give it the label, we can give it a name as well, and where we're going to pass it, I'm going to keep it a header and hope for the best at this point, to be honest. We'll see how things go. Anyway, we'll crack on with the definition. So at this point, this is looking for an action. So what is the API going to do? And we are going to use the events API, which includes discovery /v2 events. But if I copy that whole URL and jump back into my connector, I can go into new action, and we can call this get events, and this will retrieve events from Ticketmaster, and the operation ID is like the internal name for us. We'll call it get events, and we'll make it important so it's visible, and create a sample request. So it's based on a get because I'm using it in the browser, as we already saw. The URL is like so, events.json, and the header is actually going to contain, I believe, the parameters, or will it? In fact, it will be the URL because these parameters will be passed in the URL. So let's just jump back across onto the spec here. We saw that we could pass in size equals 1. Let's have a look at some of the other parameters we've got here. So we've got keyword, which is quite interesting. So let's just test this out in the browser. I've copied keyword, and if I put ampersand and then the keyword equals, and I'll type in Oasis, because they're a well-known band, I think, for most. So there we go, we've got back Oasis Live. So we know if we search by keyword, we can bring back the name of a band. And again, if we look at the rest of the available parameters, I could, of course, add all of these for my custom connector, but I'm just going to pick out some that I think might be useful. So the start date and time, I think, will be quite a good one to have. So I'll just add that in but with no value. And just try that again. We're still happy. And also I'm going to see what else we've got here. City. I think city is quite interesting as well, because I know, for instance, that they are playing in several different cities. And if I was to put Manchester as a city, and again, just pretty print this, we should be able to see the Manchester gig that's come through here. Is there anything that identifies this as Manchester? Let's do a quick search on this page. Yes, so I can see that it's bringing back the Manchester event based on the city equal Manchester. So some of those parameters, the size as well, which is quite useful. If I copy this and bring this into my custom connector, and I want to tag that onto the end here, but at the end of JSON, I put a question mark because that enables me to start passing in the parameters. If I do an import, what should happen is, there we go, it's created some query values. We've got the keyword that we can see on there, and we've got the start date time, and we've also got the city. So that gives us some parameters that we can pass into our custom connector in Copilot Studio and chat with our API. So with that created, we need to supply a sample response. I'm actually going to increase the size count here to 5 so I get a bit more data back. And I can Control A to copy all that, and Control C, so I've got that on my clipboard. The next thing I want to do is really just supply a sample response and import from a sample. And so my sample should go in here, and when I import, you can see that it's parsed the data, and we've got those available values when the data comes back from our custom connector. So this is the basics of a custom connector. And all going well, when I hit the Create Connector button, it should create a connector, no surprise. And then we'll be able to move on to testing that connector. And once it's tested, then we can bring it into a brand new agent and see if we can talk to our API from Ticketmaster. So we'll go into the test pane. We can see we've got the various parameters for keyword, start date, and the city. I've not got a connection, so I need to create a new connection. That will ask for my API key, and I have that magically saved in my clipboard. I create a connection, and then we patiently wait. There we go, the connection has now been established at 6:38. And if we do as we did before, our keyword, if I type in Oasis and test the operation, I get 4.1. Brilliant. Failed to resolve the API key variable, which probably means I've done something wrong with the security part. So let's just go back to security and edit that. Let's put it to query, and then we'll update it and test it. So if you look at the spec, I guess the API key is part of the query. And if I come back to test, now that's saved, I don't know if it'll work without me updating it. Oh, it has worked. There we go. Perfect. So I'm getting the Sacramento Kings back. And if I was to put in Oasis in there and test the operation, we're now getting Oasis Live 25. So we know that our custom connector is now working. And a little glitch there on the security when I set it up. But if I jump across into Copilot Studio now, where I'm in the same environment, that's the first thing to note, is that I'm in the environment called Demo Dev. And when I built my custom connector, I was also in Demo Dev. If I create a new agent, and this agent is going to, what's it going to do? It will, this agent will be able to get details about upcoming events using a custom connector, we'll say, and we'll go with that and see what happens. So this is, of course, using Copilot to create an agent in Copilot Studio. So it's calling it Event Connector. I think we'll go with Events Agent instead. and it's renamed it to events agent. Anything we want to particularly describe, I think, to be honest, that's probably all we need to worry about, because it's just connecting to this action on our connector. We're going to retrieve details about upcoming events, provide accurate and timely information, respond in a friendly and informative manner. Do not access. So I think that all looks good. I'll create that. That'll give us our basic agent. And of course, that agent will be grounded on its own training material, own training data. And the reason I know that, or the reason I say that, is because we have this feature currently enabled. So I could ask, for instance, when do Oasis play in Manchester? And of course, when I ask that question, this is based on data from 2023, unless things have changed. And Oasis are no longer an active band, which is no good. But of course, I've built a custom connector. I can disable that general knowledge so that our agent no longer uses that training data. And again, if I was to ask, when do Oasis play in Manchester, we should get a totally different result now, in that it should say, don't have access to real-time data. You can check websites like Ticketmaster. Good job that I have built a Ticketmaster custom connector. So over into actions, you'll see I can add an action. And this is a bit that might play ball or might not. And what I want to do is I want to search for my custom connector, which I gave a very specific name, Ticketmaster Connector 1703-2025. And I'm hoping when I search, there we go. I'm a bit concerned that it's come up twice, but we'll go with the first one and see what happens with this. So it's connected. We'll go to next. It's going to retrieve events from Ticketmaster. And if I add the action, we'll then go back into configure it, because I want to go and add in the various inputs. So that's the connector added. You'll note that there is a little message here saying, in order to enable your Copilot to respond, you need to enable Generative AI. And what that basically means is, at the moment, this particular action that I've added will not be triggered unless it's part of a topic, because at the moment, classic orchestration doesn't include actions. And we're calling the generative orchestration that when it calls an action, that's called autonomous actions, and we'll see that in play in a minute. So I've got the action in our agent, and the thing that I really want to set up is the inputs, because there are three. We've got the city, we have got the keyword, and we've got the start date. And for the city, I'm just going to give it a brief description. So identify the city where the event is to take place, otherwise leave blank. Now I'm going to leave things as they are. There's an interesting setting here, should prompt user, and if you leave this ticked, it will actually keep prompting until you provide a value for city, and I'll show you the difference in behavior shortly. But we'll leave that as it is. With the keyword search, that's really based on the artist. So this should include the artist name, if provided. Otherwise, leave blank. And then finally, we've got the start date time. And this is the start date for when the event is to occur after. So if I was to specify, for instance, the 1st of May, it would find events after the 1st of May. And again, if provided, otherwise leave blank. So I can just copy this little statement here, and we can save this, but I still think I want to have a quick look at the output. So I saved it, but let's have a look at the outputs. It is bringing back all the data that's part of the custom connector definition, and I could, if I wanted, go and delete some of these output values if I wasn't requiring them. But ultimately what I'm hoping is the agent should be able to interpret this and give me a useful response. And in the description, I'll say it retrieves events from Ticketmaster, summarize the available events in bullet mark form. That's what we'll go with, see what happens. So I'll save this. So that is our custom connector added. If I copy that question from earlier, I'll refresh it. Now, just to demonstrate, when I ask this question, I'm not expecting this to work because, of course, it's going into generative answers. It's on unknown intent. And in order for this to work, I need to turn on the generative orchestration. So over on the overview tab, we have this orchestration disabled. And of course, when I was over on actions, there was that error message here or notification saying you must enable it if you want to use the actions and topics using generative AI. Ultimately, that's a language model that orchestrates your various topics and actions to formulate a plan, which you'll then see on that activity tab. So the moment the activity tab won't work until I turn that on. And if I go into settings, it's exactly the same area here. So classic and generative, that's the same as the toggle. So if I turn on generative and save, what should happen when I come out of the settings and I go back into actions, that banner has gone. And on the overview tab, we can see the orchestration is enabled. And now if I ask the question, when do Oasis play in Manchester? It will try to connect. Oh, it has. It's actually connected, which is more than I thought. I thought it would ask me for the API key. It's asked me for the start date and time. And this is where things could go wrong because I know the date and time has to be in a specific format, but I'm going to go with the 17th of June, 2025. Let's see what string format it puts in. Okay, so it's put. We can see that string format in here. I know that the prescribed format is actually in ISO 8601, which is year, month, day for anyone that knows their ISOs. But it's also asking me over here on the right-hand side to create a connection because it's the first time I've used it. So I can go in here and connect, and it may well ask me again for the API key, or may well not because it's me that's developing. So that's worked. If I hit the retry, I'm now expecting the connector to fail, which it has. So we can see it's failed with a 400, and that's to do with the start date time. And we can go and click on the pen that I've got here and make changes and see if we can get this to configure the date in the right format. So this is a start date from when the event is to occur. If provided otherwise, leave blank. The format of the date is ISO 8601, i.e. year, month, day. And this is where I forget, I think it should then be a T. Oh dear, I might have to go and look this one up. A T, and then hours, minutes, seconds, and then Z for the UTC. We'll try this and see what happens. And if I haven't got it right, I will have to go and look it up. So I can ask, can you check again? And hopefully it has updated the date time. There we go. You can see that here. And we have now got details about the upcoming Oasis events, which is fantastic. We can see they're all in Manchester. Now, if I was to say, what about Kylie Minogue, for instance? I don't know if Kylie Minogue, I'm giving away that I'm a bit of a 80s child, but we're getting these funny messages here. What is the start date and time? Start date and time for the event. Please use the format. It's correctly populated Kylie Minogue, and if I was to say the 1st of April, we'll go 2025. What I expect is it'll probably ask me about the city next. Yeah, please tell me the city. And this is the setting that I was referring to. So I'll say London. And obviously this is quite annoying because this is not the experience I want. I don't want it to ask me those questions because they're ultimately optional. So what I can do is And there's some details about the upcoming tickets for Kylie Minogue if anyone's interested. So what I can do is, if I go back into the pen and I can edit the custom connector, and if I go into the inputs and then we'll go into the additional settings, and it's here that I said should prompt user. So if you turn this off, and actually I'm going to turn this off for all of the different input parameters, because for me they're ultimately optional, they're not required, and I don't want to prompt the user, and that'll give me a better user experience ultimately. So when I save that now, and if I refresh this over on the right hand side, I can, for instance, ask when are the upcoming, if I can spell, Oasis tickets. We'll go with that. And I'm hoping it'll stick Oasis into the keyword, which is done. And it's ignored city, it's ignored the start date time, and it will therefore bring back any of the events from the Ticketmaster API, of which I can see there are 20 based on the available data that's on this connector. It's currently sitting at processing. Now I wonder if that's because it's too much data is brought back, in which case I know that the API allows you to limit the number of pages, which might have been a sensible thing to do, or the number of items, sorry. I think I might have upset things here. Oh, no, it's come through. There we go. So we have now got our summary of all of the available events, and this is actually going worldwide as well by the looks of it, and quite a mixture of things that might not even be Oasis, which is the API. Now remembering that could well be actually, could be correct if they're playing in Chicago, in Illinois. If anyone knows, I could click on the event link and check what it is. Oasis Live, Chicago, Illinois. There we go, sold out. That's a shame. But I quite like this experience, and what this demonstrates is, because I got generative orchestration, ultimately I could come into topics and I could actually just turn off every single one of these topics because I don't need them. Generative orchestration is using its capability that I've given it in the form of the action. And what I'll show you in a second is, because it's a language model that's now putting together a plan based on the request that I give the agent is obviously built to handle any request about tickets, and it's got a conversation start which will greet me. So if I refresh at the top right hand side, we'll still get the greeting. But if I say I am traveling to New York in July 2025, are there any baseball tickets available? And then I am heading to London. We'll say 18th of June. I've got this all the wrong way around. What am I thinking of? We'll go with I'm heading to London. We'll go in August. Are Oasis playing? This could go really wrong. And then I am heading to, where am I going to head to? Vienna in August. What might I go and see? What will happen here is the language model will identify the 3 different requests I've got in here, and we'll see on the activity map the get events connector will actually run 3 times. And then off the back of those 3 runs, I'll get 1 response back from our agent. So the first request is based on New York, based on keyword baseball, and based on the 1st of July 2025. The second request is based on London Oasis and the 1st of August. I have no idea if Oasis are playing after August. And then if I look at the last one, we have Vienna and the 1st of August here. And if we go to the top, we can see New York in July. Unfortunately, there are no baseball events, and that's because no data was brought back here on the request. I didn't do very well here. The second one, Oasis is performing on the 2nd and the 3rd of August. It seems to have brought back quite a lot of information. In fact, we can have a look at that data and expand that, or will it let us? There we go. So we can see some of that data that's coming back here about Oasis. Can I even search for Oasis in here and see if we can find that event? Don't know. But we can see the data that's come back in the response, and we've got 2 links that should hopefully take us to the 2nd of August 25 in London. There we go, tickets, and if there are tickets available, my wife will be very happy, but they're not because I missed out first time round. And then if we look at Vienna in August, we can see that there are several artists playing in Vienna. And let's go to have a look at the tribute to ABBA. There we go. And there are plenty of tickets there for the Wolf Trap Feline Centre in Vienna. Hopefully I said that right. So there we go. What I've built is based on this detailed spec on Ticketmaster Developer. I've taken that spec for the event search, and then I've used that specification to create a custom connector that we can see here. I uploaded an icon, inserted the endpoint, came across into the definition and created an action for get events and supplied some sample data for the request, including the keyword startDateTime and the city. And of course I could have supplied other input parameters as well. I then went across onto test and made sure it all worked. And after the 2nd attempt and getting the security set up correctly for the API key, we got that working. And then I've jumped across onto Copilot Studio. I built an agent from scratch, built the instructions using Copilot, and enabled generative orchestration, turned off the ability to use its own general knowledge, and then by asking questions with multiple intent, we're able to get our agent to search multiple events based on the initial request, which was traveling to New York in July and then heading to London in August and Vienna in August, looking for specific tickets. And obviously we got links there to those specific events. No baseball in New York, or at least no baseball in New York that's being sold on Ticketmaster. So I see there's a few folk on live. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you've learnt there how to use generative orchestration. The fact that by enabling it, we can have just a single topic, and then our language model will identify the best course of action. It will put together a plan, build out an activity, as we see there, and string together a bespoke response. And there we have it, a custom connector built in about 35-40 minutes and then implemented in Copilot Studio. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. I'd love to hear down in the comments if you've learned anything, and as always, please make sure you like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. Cheers, bye.